I know I'm recording. Let's see. Alright, I wrote out a list today. Today I want to talk about Asperger's and kind of my life. So I wrote out a list of, things that I struggle with. And I'll talk a little bit about how it affects me and, how I deal with it. So, welcome back to another Life Skills with Jack Maverick. It's been a lot of fun making these videos. It's been a little bit of torture too, because of the Asperger's, and lately I've had a few people ask me about Asperger's. So today we'll talk about that. I think all my life, since I was a kid, I knew that I was different. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was until a few years ago, really. And it was with the birth of my first son and noticing his differences that really helped me understand me. And when I got him diagnosed, it helped me understand me that much more and how it affects me. So, all my videos, I talk about the life skills that I've learned along the way. Take it for what it's worth. Take it, something I say might apply to your life, and a lot of it might not. It just depends, case by case scenario. Not all shoes fit the same feet. But for me, and what I've learned is, since I was a kid, is that I suffer in a number of different ways, and I wrote down a list, and I'll try to explain without getting too far off topic on how I've dealt with it, what I've learned from it, and along the way I'll talk about my kids. I have 6 kids, 3 of them are on the spectrum, and how I deal with them, how they're different, how Asperger's affects them, and we'll go from there. So I suppose one of the most important things that I struggle with is consistency. I'm, for the life of me, can't be consistent at all, and I've learned that throughout the years that when my emotions sway, and we'll talk about that too, my focus on different subjects will sway as well, and so it's hard for me to remain consistent. The consistency factor is, how I came up with the sailboat metaphor. You got to stay balanced, you got to stay upright, and you got to be able to recognize when you're tipping too far this way or that way, and when you're sinking, and sinking is a big deal. So I've learned along the way that I need, for the sanity of everybody around me as well as my own sanity, I need to stay as consistent as possible, and that's important for my kids, so that they don't see a smorgasbord of emotions out of me, that they see someone more evenly keeled, that when life happens, as it inevitably does, that they can count on me to have the same reaction at all times in any situation. I can't freak out, I can't lose my mind. I've got to be there to take care of my wife and kids, and so consistency and how it affects their life, I've got to really try to maintain that in balance. A lot of let's see if I want to talk about 2 of these: anxiety and emotions. All of these play in together, but at the same time they're all separate problems. Anxiety I deal with, I can't stand being around people, I don't like going shopping, I don't like meeting new people, I don't like parties, I don't like events where I have to meet people. And so often Certain situations can stress me out. I get overwhelmed and I can't think. There's about 1,000 times that I've been pushing the cart through the grocery store, and let's say someone stands too close to me, and you know, I just can't process that. And it seems so stupid, so simple. You know, that you might not think it's a big deal, and I suppose, I guess they call them neurotypicals, people that aren't affected with the autism spectrum. Normal people, of course, who is normal? But you know, some people just don't seem to have the grasp on personal space, and it seems so logical to me. This is my personal space, stay out of it, and I'll stay out of yours. But some people's personal boundaries aren't as wide as mine, and so it tends to freak me out, stress me out, and I just can't deal with it. There's X's and O's in my brain that just don't know how to handle these certain types of situations properly. Whereas someone might say, "Excuse me, can you please stand back?" You know, that isn't how I react, and I tend to react pretty harshly, I suppose. I've toned down over the years, but the situations, they'll stress me out, and I gotta go relax. I gotta find a way to calm down. And what I was saying is, 1,000 situations I've been pushing the grocery cart and got it all full of groceries and whatever, and I will just leave it and bolt out of the store and you know, find a place where I can hide, where I can calm down, where I can refocus and put my mind back together. And you know, sometimes I've gone back in and gotten the groceries and made it out with all the groceries. I go find my basket, you know. Sometimes that hasn't happened. So in dealing with that with me, I know that certain situations are going to affect my kids as well. Now, my kids, they're their own people. They're not me. And I've got to understand that. So certain things that apply to me and affect me don't necessarily affect them in their lives. But when I recognize that I see the same stressors in them, I try to help them, remove them from whatever's stressing them out, protect them from losing their mind, and help them stay in control, stay in balance with their own mind. And you know, even dealing with them, sometimes I've been successful at it, sometimes not so much. I, for the life of me, do not claim to be a good parent, but I try. So anxiety, you know, what I've learned is that I need to avoid the stressors that I cannot process. I need to get myself out of that situation. I need to go find me a place that's comfortable for me and relax, re-energize, refocus on the things that matter to me and what I need to do to be a responsible adult and stay in control of my life and yeah, stay in control of my life. So emotions play a part in that too, because I'm sorry, there's bugs flying all around me. I swear I took a shower this morning, but maybe I smell good and they think I'm a flower. I don't know, but they're all over me and getting in my hair and in my ears, and I just hope no snakes come up on me. Anyway, emotions are very difficult for me because I'm very cut and dry. I'm very black and white. If you're going to be a stress in my life, I'm done with you. I've learned along the way to axe these negative influences out of my life. Get them away from me. Don't accept that stress in your life. And that is so important. It applies to everybody, all of humankind. I see all these shows on TV where they just want to, catch people breaking down in the camera shot because drama sells, I guess, and it's just not a healthy way to live your life. It's not a healthy way to behave. So keeping your emotions in check is very important. Keeping my emotions in check is very important. So that being said, my wife, she's a sweetheart. She's the sweetest person I've ever met. And even though my kids are monsters, they're also great kids. But there are times when someone will say something, and it's purely innocent, but it hurts my feelings. And the extreme left and right of emotions that I personally feel, man, it bowls me over like a bowling ball and a bunch of bowling pins. And I sink fast, and I sink hard, and depending on the situation, it can take me days, weeks to pull myself out of the funk and to get back to feeling like I'm normal and healthy again, to where I'm happy again. And so I work in a high demand, stressful job. I'm a construction superintendent, and so I deal with a lot of people and stresses that can affect my emotions at any given time. And so I can go from happy to depressed in a matter of minutes, and depressed to the point where I think I'm a complete failure at being a husband, a complete failure at being a father, that my wife, my kids, they'll be better off without me, that the people around me, I just need to not have any friends because I adversely affect them. And it's very hard to stay in control of, and those people that just say, just snap out of it. It doesn't work like that. The X's and O's in my brain and other Aspergers brains, it just doesn't work like that. And so what I've learned along the way is certain techniques, certain measures to bring my emotions back to a consistent state, to where I'm happy and feeling good, and I can respond appropriately and in a healthy manner to my wife and kids. Instead of the roller coaster ride of my emotions, and I can give them an even keel response based out of logic and love and concern for their well-being, instead of being rash and harsh. So with my wife and kids, I've got to be sensitive to their emotions. When I get down, I can't lash out at them. I can't, pick on them. I can't take my anger, my hurt, my frustration out on them. And, I'm not perfect. I've learned this the hard way, because I realized that I was doing things wrong, and I was hurting their feelings, and I wasn't being a loving husband and a loving father. And I don't like admitting that, but there you go. I've learned the hard way to take care of those around me that love me, that care for me, that count on me. Keeping your emotions in check. What was I going to say? You've got to remember, and let me tell you, for me, I have to constantly remind myself. I swear I should put a tattoo across my forehead so I can see it in the mirror every day, that I've got to base my emotions in logic and reason. And again, that's that black and white, and sometimes that doesn't come off very sensitive either. But to keep me in check, I've got to say, okay, Did you ruin your kids' lives? No, it's just a setback, and I have to rationalize it out, not justify my behavior, but I have to understand that it's not the end of the world, that it's not as extreme and dramatic as I feel it is, and I've got to reel myself back in so that I can put myself in check, correct my behavior, correct my emotions, and get balanced again, so that I don't lash out at my wife and kids and those around me that love me, so that I can respond and participate in this life in a healthy manner. So emotions are very important. So, dealing with my wife and kids, I think, I learned a long time ago that I didn't want to be like my parents. Of course, my dad, I believe also suffered from Asperger's, and so that came to some harsh and hurtful behaviors out of him, and with my past, I've got to deal with those things. I've got to understand that he struggled with a lot of the same things I did and different things than I did, and I've got to forgive, and I've got to forgive myself, and I've got to reel my emotions back in and understand the logic and the reason and the mental. I hate the word, the mental illness. I hate that, but that is behind it. That the X's and O's don't line up. I like that better. It's not an illness. It's just who we are, and so it the symbol for autism is a puzzle piece, and this life and these videos and these life skills, they don't teach this stuff in school. So over here you get this puzzle piece that wasn't good behavior on my part, and that ended up hurting the feelings of the people that I love. And so you get that puzzle piece, and you learn through life experience, and you put that into your heart and soul. And remember, whatever you think about all day is how you end up feeling, and then how you feel ends up becoming your behavior. So you've got to keep your emotions in check, so that you don't walk around all day for days on end, for weeks on end, for months on end, and years on end, and your whole life feeling like you're a failure, feeling like you don't belong in this world, feeling like you don't fit in anywhere. Let me sidetrack on that a little bit. Hold on, I screenshotted it so I could see it. Let me get it right here. A friend on Instagram posted this, and I don't know who Lawson Davis is, but apparently he said, autism is like being a highly intelligent alien with overactive, super heightened senses, shipwrecked on Earth and forced to live amongst humans. If that isn't the best description of Asperger's I've ever heard of, I don't know what is. All of our senses are super heightened. I work construction. I cannot stand the sound of a hammer pinging. It makes my eyes blink every time. It drives me insane. But I have to deal with it, and so that plays into my anxiety. That it stresses me out. I can't stand hearing it, and I've got to get myself out of this situation or find another healthy way to deal with it. So some of these healthy ways, some of them not healthy ways that I've learned how to deal with things is, when I first reached out for help, I don't want to say too much because, I don't like talking about what I went through. That's not what these videos are about. What I learned is that there are ways that we can meditate, for lack of a better word, just thinking about meditation, to center yourself, to bring yourself in check, to think about the stresses that are all around us, and to refocus on what's important. Again, you've got to know what's important for yourself. So when I first reached out for help, I was taught things like meditation, music therapy, just having someone to talk to, and how to express myself, how to express my emotions in a way that could be understood, could be accepted, instead of being so devastating to others in my response. Along with all the good habits I've learned 1,000 bad coping mechanisms along the way. I don't have a sense of humor. I don't think I'm a funny guy. I've got a weird sense of humor that no one understands. And so, like at work, you know, I grew up in a rough field. I grew up in construction. I've done it my whole life. And so, you know, an Aspie or an alien sitting around a bunch of neurotypical people that talk about, you know, some pretty rough stuff and are not sensitive with emotions at all. You either perform or you're history. I've had to learn how to live in that kind of environment, and not only live in it, but to flourish if I wanted to keep a job. So some of the bad things I've learned along the way is not only you know, some bad, unhealthy physical habits, you know, smoking, drinking, stuff like that, is some emotional habits. So when someone says something to me and I don't know how to respond, I come back with something off the wall, some crazy, zany, or some off the wall, just completely blast your emotions and your feelings and your person out of the water. And I was extreme at that, and I've developed a very rough nature. I can outcuss anybody, and you know, other unhealthy habits that, well, I say unhealthy, but now I'm thinking they have helped me. You know, they have helped me learn to cope and to get to this point. So take it for what you will. I had another Aspie ask me about how to deal with other people, and I shared the story of this one girl that she tormented me. It didn't matter what I said. She verbally abused me in every response. And so trying to figure out how to deal with her, because there was no escaping her, I had to deal with her. I started just saying, I have no response to that. And every time I said that, from the first time I said it to the very last time I said it, it made her have no response to it. And so it eventually became fun for me. Anytime she would say anything that would lambaste my feelings, I would just look at her and smile and say, I have no response to that. And eventually, over time, she calmed down. And maybe she realized she was hurting me, I don't know. But she and I eventually became friends. And we talked, and we figured each other out, and we came to an understanding and a friendship. And whether that was healthy or not, I don't know, but it's how I dealt with the situation, keeping my emotions protected and in check. Let's see, I talked about fitting in a little bit, so let's go there. I've never fit in. I've learned that I can be very persuasive, and I can always get people to come around to my way of thinking, or I can persuade them to, you know, do things. I learned that in elementary school, and it was just kind of my coping mechanism, that since I was always the outcast, I was always left out, I was never incorporated into neurotypical activities, that I would make my own, and I would convince other people to come join me. And that has been a lifesaver in learning how to communicate my feelings and emotions and how to protect myself, is to focus on what motivates other people, what drives other people. You know, how can I change their thinking? How can I positively affect them? And, you know, when I was a kid, it was self-serving. I wanted to be included. And these days, so it helps me understand where other people are coming from, the emotions that they're feeling, and kind of sometimes I can see what they're trying to say, the path that they're trying to get to, and I can understand that, and I can appreciate their emotions, their feelings, and it helps me understand them, it helps me understand me, and it helps me to be able to carry on a poignant and logical and sensitive conversation, so that it's healthy and serving for, you know, all parties around. So fitting in, to this day, I still don't fit in. People, when they meet me, they always notice that I'm different, and over the course of, you know, an acquaintance or a friendship, they say, yeah, you were different, you know. They always inevitably say that to me. You know, some of those bad habits and good habits come into play when I meet new people. Unfortunately, I have to shake a lot of hands. I meet a lot of new people on every building that I go build. I meet lots of new people, and I have to deal with them and interact with them and help them understand our course of action throughout the construction build. And I think I've gotten pretty good at it. But fitting in, you know, those healthy and unhealthy habits come out to where I'm over boisterous, I suppose, and I say outlandish things, you know, to make others laugh, to break the ice with me so that I don't stress out. And I don't think I'll ever fit in. You know, there are times when I still feel like an outcast in my own family, let alone my brothers and sisters, but with my wife and kids, to where it's like I'm an alien and I'm stuck on planet Earth with them, and, you know, sometimes we just don't jibe together. So with that, with my wife and kids, I've got to remember, I've got to be emotionally consistent with them. I can't freak out. I can't have an anxiety attack. I've got to do those healthy steps that I've learned, so that I can control my behavior, so that I can reason with myself. Is this a logical emotion, or is this a far-fetched emotion? And come back down to earth and live with them on a daily basis and fit in with them, which is very hard. Some of the things, some other ways that I've learned is Teo stones. I've done those, and you know, if you're watching these videos, you know I believe in the great spirituality of it all, that you know, we were created by a supreme being, and we're here on earth, and I believe that all of our actions in this life is guided so that we can learn these lessons, so that we can return to that great creator someday. So Teo stones I would use, and, you know, I'd pick up a couple of stones and I'd look at the little, I don't know, character that was on it, and I'd read the story behind the character, so that I could try to find the spiritual balance in my life in order to positively affect the direction that I was going. And I've struggled for a couple decades, just trying to figure me out, trying to resolve my past and the difficulties that I've faced. Fitting in is, I gave up on that a long time ago, so now I just try to give a good impression and be a positive influence for those that I meet and interact with, and do my job and take care of my wife and kids and move on, you know. Let's see what else we got here. Routine. You see my shirt? It's a t-shirt, so you know it's the weekend, and so it's generally a t-shirt weekend. I have certain clothes that I like, certain clothes that I don't like. I wear what I like. Monday morning is generally always a red shirt, because I like to start the week with some power, with some positivity. That's how I view it. Call me crazy. You know, I try to stick within a routine just so I can stay consistent, keep my emotions in check, keep my anxiety in check, keep my focus on my wife and kids and taking care of them, and my job and doing a good job at what I do. If I lose my routine, you know, my anxiety gets triggered, you know, and so I've learned that I've got to realize when these things don't happen. And there are times, and it can happen very quickly, when life happens, something unexpected happens, gets me out of my routine, and I've got to regain control. Snake check. I've got to regain control of my life, my work, my family, and figure it all out. So I've learned the 80-20 principle, and let me just sum it up. A lot of people go to work and they spend 8 hours, you know, floundering around and kind of working. But the 80-20 principle says, which is very important in my line of work, and helps me an awful lot, that I'm going to spend 20% of my time doing the most effective things that I can do, so that I can regain control of not only my emotions, but my family and my job. That way, 80% of the time, I'm enjoying the benefits of my hard work. Instead of floundering around and doing everything half-assed, I spend 20 minutes, 20% of my effort, my energy, into putting my ASPE hyper-focus to use. And, you know, depending on the situation, like at work, I'll get on the phone and I'll call every contractor I've got, and I'll write out, you know, what we've got left to do, how long it's going to take us, and the dates that we're going to do it, and this needs to come before that. And I spend 20% of my effort really powering it out. So when it comes to my family, I would say that they get 80% of my effort, and I try to reserve, you know, some 20% of my time and effort to me and what makes me happy, so that I can recharge my batteries. But having having a wife alone is a lot of work, and if you want a happy, successful marriage, it takes a lot of work. And you know, I've talked about this. Marriage isn't a war. It's not you know, a competition. It's, I love you, and I'm going to do everything I can for you to make you happy. And so that's what I always try to stay focused on, and I try to stay consistent at it. So I have to divide my time between my wife and my kids, and make sure that all my kids get adequate time with me, so that no one feels left out. So it leaves me with not a lot of personal time. So I try to incorporate my kids into things that I like to do, and I try to get them out of their comfort zone, so that they can learn and grow. In relation to them and the next topic, adventure and routine, is that you know, 3 of my kids are neurotypical, 3 of them are on the spectrum, and so there's a big sway of what I can do with each one of them and what I can't do with each one of them. And so I've got to make sure that my time is balanced with each of them in that category that they like to do. But at the same time, my wife and I were an excellent team. We understand that we can't protect and coddle our kids. They're gonna get bullied. That's life. You know, we want to stop bullying, but every adult on the internet gets on their power keyboard and they'll lambaste and trash anybody they disagree with out there. Unhealthy. So bullying happens. I was bullied. I got in a lot of fights. Win some, you lose some, but you learn from them, and they've made me a better person. So while I don't want my kids to get beaten up and bullied, trials, our strength comes through our trials. And I've met quite a few of older people, older than me, that have gotten up there and haven't learned some of these lessons. And you know, I think that's unfortunate. And so in relation to my wife and kids, I want them to have their own trials. Of course, I don't want them hurt. I don't want them bleeding. I don't want them picked on. I don't want their emotions hurt. But life is hard. Life happens to all of us. And I don't believe that no matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to protect your loved ones from everything. And in the context of spirituality and growth, why would you want to? I want my kids to be hardworking, self-motivated, healthy adults. And I know that not only for my neurotypical kids, but for my Aspergers kids, that is going to take trials, that is going to teach them how to assimilate and how to fit in to the world around them and participate in life, so that they can take care of themselves when they get older, so that they can manage their money, so that they can manage their emotions. You know, I'm not always going to be there to take care of my kids, and you know, as they get older, they don't want me to. So, you know, I've got to do everything I can to teach them how to be responsible, healthy adults. And that comes with dealing with their own trials. They're going to make their own decisions. And I said this earlier, I decided a long time ago I didn't want to be like my parents, so I've decided that everything that I can do in my interactions with them always needs to be based in love. Now, you can say, I yell because I love you, and I'm not perfect. I have a loud voice. I have not always done right by my kids, and I have oftentimes had to apologize and ask for their forgiveness so that we can get back on a healthy track. And you know, a lot of those problems, I understand, come from me, so I can't take it out on my kids. But I totally forget what I was saying. Routine, fitting in. I want my kids to be happy and healthy. That comes with learning how to deal with life's emotions, life stresses, dealing with work, dealing with money and people around us. My focus, I tell you what, I don't have one focus. I've got about 100 different focuses, and they can fire on and off at any given time. Ask my wife, I drive her crazy. Sometimes I want to build, you know, I love to build. It's what I do for a living, but, you know, I want to build all the time. I want to build my backyard oasis. I want to build little paddle ducks. I think it'd be awesome for all 6 of my kids and my wife and I to be out on a paddle duck. It's like a little sailboat. To be out in the water, you know, sailing around, having little races. And then sometimes I don't want to build. I want to do this activity, which is completely different, completely unrelated. And then, boom, that'll switch off. And then I'm over here, and my wife is like, what's going on here? And so, for her sake, I try to stay consistent. So what I've recently been trying to do is to divide up my time. I've got 12 months in a year. I can pick an activity, and I can do it for 3 months or I can do it for 4 months. Depends on how many activities I want to fit into the year. But for that 3 or 4 months, divided up into sections, I get to focus on this activity. This is what I get to do. This is what I get to spend my time and money on. This is what makes me happy. So I do that for 3 or 4 months, and I try to get done. If I don't get done, move it into the next segment of 3 or 4 months, and then get done, and then switch. Now I'm focused on this. This is what's making me happy right now. So I try to organize my time and my life like that, so I don't drive everybody crazy around me. It keeps me from growing crazy too. And so as far as focus and my kids, some of them I can get to go outside and play. Some of them I can't. Some of them, you know, like to do their activities, and I can relate to that, and some of them not so much. But what I try to do is to support my kids in whatever they're focused on. Help them, encourage them. I want them to succeed. I'm not trying to mold my kids into what I want them to be, but I'm trying to help them find a successful route career-wise in what they want to be. So I encourage them. I encourage all my kids to go to college. I try to encourage all my kids to set their dreams up here and have big, high dreams, and never give up on themselves. I try to teach them about hard work because I know all about that. And I try to encourage them every step of the way that when it comes to the Aspergers in the family, including myself, we are super good at a lot of different varying things. I hear a lot that Aspergers are great in the computer field. I have no clue about that because I'm not a computer guy. But my hyper focus in construction is great because I know the details. I know what has to be done. I know when it has to be done. I know my schedule like that. And so my projects are pretty organized and run really smooth, and it works out great for me. I'm good at what I do, and I love what I do. So I would say to encourage your kids to maintain their focus, but also break it apart. You've got to push your kids out of their comfort zone. I swear I've been out of my comfort zone for my entire life. Nothing has ever been comfortable. Everything has always come very hard. But I try to explore new things, and I try to get my kids to explore new things. So that has everything to do with the focus and how to engage my kids in changing their focus to try something different. I love doing that with my kids through cooking, because kids are kids. They only want to eat hot dogs and macaroni and cheese, and I like to cook. I'm a self-proclaimed good cook, but I'm not really that good of a cook. But I like to cook, and so I try to get my kids to try new things all the time, get their focus on other things. That coupled with adventure. There was a time when I was a kid and I'd never been anywhere, never done anything, and so adventure was very scary, and it was a very high anxiety stressor, and it took a lot of uncomfortable situations to break through that, get over it, and now to enjoy it. I love to travel. When I travel, I typically don't pack pretty much anything. Bring a toothbrush and deodorant and a couple pairs of clean clothes, and that's it. I'm the guy on the plane that has a backpack that's not even half full, and go around the world and I'll be just fine. I've learned to love the unexpected, the non-routine. And it's become fun because it's always a challenge for me to carry on, and it kind of helps me to remember to enjoy the space and the beauty of everything that's around me, instead of being locked up in my routine with my hyper focus, to expand my horizons, to try new food, to try new cultures. I've been around the world 3 times by myself, and compliments to the Marine Corps, and I've been to several different countries, and there's good and bad everywhere you go, in every situation, every culture, every food, but I've learned to love the change of it, the adventure of it. Doggone, there is one persistent fly that keeps buzzing around my head, and I hope he doesn't jump in my mouth. Anyway, adventure. Take your kids out. Push yourself to have adventure, to try new things in life, to get out of your comfort zone. And remember, this is coming from a guy that if I'm driving down the road and I'm looking for something to eat, I can't make a decision to save my life. So unfortunately, a lot of the times I end up going hungry. But you've got to get out and try new things, try some adventure, take yourself out of your comfort zone so that you can continue to learn. It'll help you cope in life, it'll help you deal with new people, new situations, it'll help reduce the anxiety, or at least learn how to control the anxiety that affects you. That's what I've learned. Let's see, focus, habits, fitting in, emotions, routine, adventure, anxiety, and consistency. I think I've talked about all of my topics and how they affect me and how I deal with that with my wife and kids, and so I guess I'm done talking. As always, I hope these videos help you. You know, through these videos I encounter people, not every day, but it's fairly often that new people join the conversation, and how do I deal with this? I need help with that. It's definitely been a learning experience and a lot of fun for me, so I love your interaction, and I love to help you wherever I can with whatever I can, you know. And so I appreciate you hitting me up. I encourage you to do that. Like, subscribe, watch the videos. You know, you might not see something good today, but tomorrow you might see something good that positively affects your life, and that's what I hope for, that I can positively affect your life in any situation, in any circumstance, in the smallest, minutest way. Hit me up. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Tumblr, and here on YouTube. I love you all. Take care of yourselves. Love yourself. Have a good day. Bye.